In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
No, they're taking me in because of the fact that I lived in the Soviet Union. I'm just a patsy.
What if I told you that some of the most pivotal events in modern U.S. history were driven by conspiracies, covert actions, and manipulated narratives?
The initial attack on the destroyer Maddox on August 2nd was repeated today.
Today, we're unraveling 5 explosive mid-20th century U.S. presidential conspiracies.
The committee does not believe that the acts which it has examined represent the real American character.
These aren't just stories. They're proven events that reshaped America and the world.
Desde luego que para el señor presidente de los Estados Unidos, lo que nosotros hemos hecho por nuestro pueblo es traición a nuestro pueblo.
First, Operation Northwoods, a 1962 plan that could have led the U.S. to attack itself. At the height of Cold War tensions, U.S. military leaders devised a shocking plan to justify an invasion of Cuba.
This was the scene of turmoil in the capital, Havana, as the climax of revolution was reached. Anyone suspected of sympathy for the Batista regime came in for a rough time.
Operation Northwoods was a plan that involved staging fake terrorist attacks on American soil, bombings, hijackings, and other acts of violence that could be blamed on Fidel Castro's government. The goal? To provoke outrage among Americans and gain public support for a war to oust Castro.
46 were wounded, 2 killed under questionable circumstances. Castro, in a broadcast speech lasting most of the night, says bombs from U.S.-based planes are responsible for the casualties. Other reports say it was men in cars.
The military's willingness to fabricate tragedies extended to detailed ideas, such as faking the downing of a U.S. aircraft or sinking boats filled with Cuban refugees. The U.S. government would then use these manufactured atrocities as a pretext for intervention. When the plan reached President John F. Kennedy's desk, he rejected it outright.
Harry Truman once said there are 14 or 15 million Americans who have the resources to have representatives in Washington to protect their interests. And that the interests of the great mass of the other people, 150 or 60 million, is the responsibility of the President of the United States, and I propose to fulfill it.
This decision was pivotal, illustrating Kennedy's commitment to avoiding unnecessary military escalation. However, some speculate that Kennedy's refusal to endorse Operation Northwoods added to the tension between him and the military establishment, tensions that some believe contributed to his assassination the following year.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
While Operation Northwoods was never carried out, its mere proposal highlights the extreme lengths Cold War strategists were willing to go to achieve their goals. Next, COINTELPRO and its CIA counterpart, Operation Chaos, programs designed to infiltrate and undermine domestic movements.
One of the most critical struggles against communism is on the youth front. J. Edgar Hoover reveals that on May 30, 1959, the communists organized a new campaign designed to infiltrate and subvert the youth of this nation.
Running from 1956 to 1971, COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, was the FBI's covert initiative aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, and sabotaging domestic political organizations deemed subversive.
My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Initially targeting the Communist Party, the program expanded to focus on civil rights leaders, anti-war groups, feminist movements, and black power activists.
Violence is self-defeating. He who lives by the sword will perish by the sword.
Notable figures like Martin Luther King Jr. were heavily monitored, with the FBI attempting to discredit and blackmail them. Tactics included planting informants, spreading false information, and instigating internal conflicts to weaken these groups from within.
The most honored and respected black in American history, he was not without his enemies. And none was more vindictive than J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover saw King as a threat to the established social order, and thus a threat to Hoover himself.
For example, the FBI sent an anonymous letter to Martin Luther King Jr. threatening to expose his personal life in an attempt to push him to resign, or worse. At the same time, the CIA was running Operation Chaos, a parallel program that gathered intelligence on domestic anti-Vietnam War protests and left-wing organizations. However, the CIA's involvement violated its charter, which explicitly barred domestic surveillance. Both programs operated in secret until the 1970s, when whistleblowers and investigative journalists brought them to light.
Well, it's a bill that would set up a permanent oversight committee, bipartisan committee, with a rotating membership so that it would not be preempted by the agencies that it is to oversee.
The public was outraged, and the revelations led to congressional hearings and reforms designed to prevent future abuses. These programs remain stark reminders of how the government can overreach under the guise of national security. Now, the most debated conspiracy in American history, the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You'll excuse the fact that I'm out of breath, but about 10 or 15 minutes ago, a tragic thing, from all indications at this point, has happened in the city of Dallas. Let me quote to you this.
On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas.
President Kennedy and Governor John Connally have been cut down by assassins' bullets in downtown Dallas. They were riding in an open automobile when the shots were fired. The president, his limp body carried in the arms of his wife Jacqueline, has rushed to Parkland Hospital.
The official investigation, led by the Warren Commission, concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Yet this explanation has been widely questioned, leading to an endless stream of theories involving the CIA, the Mafia, anti-Castro Cuban exiles, and even factions within the U.S. government. With over 2,000 books written on the subject and countless documentaries, articles, and movies exploring the case, the JFK assassination remains the most analyzed and debated conspiracy in American history.
Carl Oglesby, your group, the Assassination Information Bureau, has long contended that new findings might well show that there was a conspiracy. Yeah. What do you make of the new evidence?
Well, from the standpoint of the people in the critical community, it's a major breakthrough, because if the tape is established as an authentic record of the events of those 5 minutes in Dealey Plaza, and if the tape does indeed show that there was gunfire from two directions, then that pretty much tears it for the no conspiracy theory, unless we're inclined to imagine that there were two lone assassins on the prowl that day at Dealey Plaza who just by some terrible coincidence happened to choose the same method of attack and the same moment.
In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, HSCA, revisited the case and came to a shocking conclusion. Kennedy was likely killed as a part of a conspiracy, with evidence suggesting that there was more than one shooter. While the HSCA stopped short of naming specific conspirators, it pointed to flaws in the Warren Commission's findings and raised serious doubts about the lone gunman theory. For this channel, Proven Conspiracies, we defer to the HSCA's conclusion. The Kennedy assassination was indeed the result of a conspiracy. The full scope of that conspiracy may never be known, but its legacy has shaped the American public's skepticism of official narratives. Finally, the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
As President and Commander-in-Chief, it is my duty to the American people to report that renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply.
An event that led the U.S. into the Vietnam War under questionable circumstances. In August 1964, the U.S. Navy reported 2 incidents in the Gulf of Tonkin, claiming that North Vietnamese forces had attacked the USS Maddox and another ship. President Lyndon B. Johnson used these reports to push for the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, which granted him broad authority to escalate U.S. military involvement in Vietnam.
And I have informed them that I shall immediately request the Congress to pass a resolution making it clear that our government is united in its determination.
However, it was later revealed that the second attack reported on August 4th likely never occurred. Declassified documents showed that the U.S. had exaggerated or possibly fabricated the incident to justify military action. The Gulf of Tonkin incident became the foundation for America's full-scale entry into the Vietnam War, a conflict that would claim the lives of tens of thousands of Americans and millions of Vietnamese.
His 2 daughters were able to jump into a small air raid shelter, but his wife and small boy were killed. What, he said, have we ever done to the American people, that they should send their bombers to kill our women and children?
This false narrative exposed how governments can manipulate information to sway public opinion and achieve political or military objectives. The Gulf of Tonkin incident is now regarded as a textbook example of how misinformation can lead to devastating consequences, leaving a legacy of distrust between the government and its people. In conclusion, these events illustrate the lengths to which the U.S. government was willing to go to achieve its goals during the Cold War era. From fabricated crises like Operation Northwoods and the Gulf of Tonkin to covert surveillance programs like COINTELPRO and Operation Chaos, these stories show a government grappling with immense power and at times overstepping ethical and legal boundaries. The assassination of JFK remains the most enduring conspiracy of them all, reminding us how deeply such events can shape the public psyche. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And join us next time as we explore more of history's most compelling, proven conspiracies.